Sarah. I go by G Sarah on Instagram, and today we're going to learn how to make a candle. So, I'm not the best planner. Whenever you first start making candles or you make your first candle, it is best to use the double boiler method. And that is when you have a pitcher in a pot with some water that's touching maybe like up to here on the pitcher, and then you have that pot sitting on a hot plate or on a stove top until it's boiling, and that's how you melt the wax. I am a genius and gave away my hot plate for a giveaway recently and forgot about making this video. So I'm going to be using my Presto pot, but I'll still kind of go into some details about how you would be doing the double boiler method. So like, for instance, right now I'm going to plug in my Presto pot, but this is when you would start boiling the water. So while that's melting, I'm going to go into all of the things that you're going to need in order to make a candle. First, you're going to need your heat source, double boiler method, or Presto pot if you prefer. Secondly, you're going to need a pitcher. And this is what I use for most of my candle making, but for these examples, I'm going to be using a smaller one. This is the one that usually comes in all of the candle making kits, and I will include some candle making kits down in the description if you want to do that, because that comes with a lot of the stuff that you're going to need. I'm also going to have all of this stuff tagged down below as well if you just want to buy it all separately. Next, you're going to need your vessel. This is an 8-ounce tin from California Candle Supply. I'm going to put the lid on the bottom. That's just usually what I always do, especially whenever I first started making candles. I would put the lids on the bottom with like a post-it note with all the details of what I used in that candle. You're going to need your choice of wax, which I have melting in here. Then you're going to need your wicks, and you can either buy wicks that are pre-tabbed like this one, or you can buy spools of wicks and then buy these wick tabs, which is this part that goes on the bottom. I personally buy them pre-tabbed, and then I'll insert it, make my candles, and then whenever I cut it, I save the trimmings that's left over, which is what I have going on right here. I've got 2 trimmings right here, and I'm going to double wick this candle jar because it's over 3 inches. If it's over 3 inches, you can double wick it. You don't have to, but you can, and that's just what I like to do, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to be using these tabs because I feel like it saves a lot of money in the long run, because I bought a bag of 1,000 of these wicks over a year ago, and I've made a lot of candles, and I'm not even close to being done because I am not throwing away my trimmings. I buy the tabs and then I reuse them. If you're going to do this method, you need these, and I'm going to do that later. When it comes to wicks, there are cotton and wood wicks, and I've never used wood wicks myself, but I have burned candles that have wood wicks, and they crackle and they're really cool, and I wanted to use wood wicks, but I never got to that point. I may switch at some point. I'm not really sure. You're going to need a thermometer. So this is the thermometer that usually comes in all the candle making kits, and this is perfect for the Presto pot because it just like sticks right on the side right there. But for whenever you're testing the temperature outside of the Presto pot, you may want a different thermometer. You can use the same one, but it might be easier to just use a different one, or to get one of those laser, infrared laser thermometers, those little guns. We are going to need fragrance oil. Today I'm going to be using Egyptian amber from the Flaming Candle. You're going to need cups to pour your fragrance oil into. We need wick stickers. I only need 2 of them, so I'm just going to rip 2 of them. Lastly, you're going to need a scale, because everything that is done in candle making is done by weight. The fragrance oil is done by weight, the wax is done by weight. It is all done by weight. With most of the candle making kits that you can find on the internet, it's not going to have a scale included. And I don't understand why, because you have to have a scale. It can be a kitchen scale or it can be a shipping scale. I use a kitchen scale. I think this is up to 33 pounds. Yeah. It's up to 33 pounds, and I'll have all this stuff linked down below. And then I also use a gram scale for my fragrance oil, because I like to do my fragrance oil like really accurate. What I like to do first, this is a little silicone sheet that I like to use to put this on, so that whenever I'm pouring the hot wax down, it's not gonna, I don't know, mess up the scale. I'm not sure if it would, but I like to do that to be extra careful. Before we get started, this is totally optional, but it's also good to have, it's really good to have a heat gun for making sure that you get all of the sinkholes and to get smooth tops if you have a hard time getting smooth tops. So first, while this wax is melting, I'm gonna do my candle math really fast and I'll put it up on the screen as I'm doing it. I'm making a 6-ounce candle with 8% fragrance oil, which is 5.55 ounces of wax. So if you were doing the double boiler method, that's how much wax you would put into your pitcher before you put it onto the hot plate or the stove to start melting into the pot that's boiling with water. Since all of my wax is in here, that's just how much wax I'm actually going to measure whenever I pour it out, is 5.55 ounces of wax. So now we need to figure out how much fragrance oil we need. So 6 minus 5.55 equals 0.45 ounces, and then I convert it to grams, so times 28.35, 12.75 grams. And then I'm just gonna set this aside. I always kind of just leave my candle math sitting there so that I can refer back to it whenever I need to. I will tag my candle math video up here if you want to like really learn about the formula and what it means and just how to do that. It's really easy once you have it down. It's super easy to do that if you're making 1 candle or 50 candles, or if you're making 10 candles of a bunch of different scents. It's easy once you have that formula right there down. Fragrance oil, in case you're wondering why I do 8%, it's just what I decided on. Whenever you buy certain waxes, there's going to be some manufacturer like what the wax can hold, which is usually between like 6 and 12%. That changes, but that's like kind of a general amount. And that doesn't mean that you should put in 12%, it just means that the wax can hold 12%. I did a lot of my own testing and I found that 8% works the best for me. So nobody can really tell you what fragrance oil percentage to use. You just do your own testing and try different percentages out, and then you'll find whichever one you think works the best for you. So since the wax is melting, we're going to prep our tin. Know that if you start a candle making journey, you're going to be using a lot of paper towels. A lot of paper towels, kind of like as much toilet paper that was used during 2020. It's going to be like that, but with paper towels all the time, everywhere, because it's really the only way that you can clean up wax. What I'm doing right now is I'm spraying alcohol into a paper towel and then wiping the tin with it. Helps get rid of any dust. It also helps for the wick stickers to adhere to the bottom. Now I'm going to prep my little wick trimmings. So rather than just throwing those away now, I'm going to save myself from using 2 more wicks entirely and just clip them on. I do also have a video showing how to do this that I made forever ago. I should probably update it, but I'll attach that above too. But basically you just stick the wick in through the hole, take your needle nose pliers, pinch, Alright, so I'm about to prep my tin here, but I also just wanted to show you guys the wax right now. I've got the Presto Pot on really low. It's like barely touching the R on warm. I can probably turn it up a little bit. But it's melting. The more that it melts, we'll start actually going in here and stirring it up. This is still just kind of like a big slab. But anyways, we're gonna prepare our tin. All right, so we already cleaned it out with alcohol. This one has a tiny dent in the bottom, which is why I'm using it for this candle, because I can't, I probably could sell it with that, but I wouldn't feel right about it. I don't know. That's not pretty. So I've got my 2 wicks here. I've got my wick stickers. You're gonna peel it off and put it on the side. Peel it off. Try to center it as much as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now, I know that there are like wick centering tools, and that's gravy. I don't use those. I just eyeball it. So what I like to do, and it's a lot easier to do it in these tins than it is in the big jars, because in the big jars, you can't fit your fingers all the way down in there. What I need to do is, like, I'll use a pencil to help guide it down and then push it down to the bottom. But the placement of the wicks is going to be basically the exact same, because the diameter of my tall jars is really, really almost the exact same of this. But you want them to be close together, not touching, and centered as much as possible. And then with the tins, you can just kind of go in and squeeze. And this is just me, but I like mine to be centered, really close together, but not touching in the tins. Now I'm going to come in here and put my wick centering tool in. Now, I know a lot of people say that you can use like hot glue to stick your wicks at the bottom of your jar. I would not suggest doing that because hot glue melts, obviously. So it's going to melt again, either whenever you pour in your really, really hot wax, or whenever the person that bought your candle burns it down far enough and it gets really hot, and then it could melt, and then your wicks are going to start moving around inside of your jar, and you don't want that to happen. So I would suggest not using hot glue. There's the wick stickers, which I'll have tagged down below, or there's this stuff called red RTV, I think is what it's called. I've never used it myself, but I hear that that works really well. I know this scale is like super dirty. I want you guys to be able to see, so I'm just cleaning this off while the wax is finished getting up to temperature. So what I mean by that is that with certain waxes, it has to get up to a certain temperature. Most coconut waxes need to heat up to 200 degrees or above. Most soy waxes need to heat up to about 185 degrees. It's going to have all of that information on the manufacturer's page whenever you purchase the wax. I'm going to unplug my Presto pot, but if you're doing the double boiler method, this is where you would just take it off the heat and turn off your hot plate or your stove. Now we're going to turn on the scale. As you can see, it's already at 0, but let's just say that, you know, you turn it off or you turn it on, it's at 0, and then we put our pot up there. You're just gonna hit tear to get it back down to 0. So now when we pick it up, it's got the weight of the pitcher on top. If I refer to my candle math over here, I have to put in 5.55 ounces of wax. So now we don't need this scale. So I'm leaving it on the silicone just to protect, you know, the surface underneath. And now I'm going to be checking the temperature with this guy. You're going to be checking the temperature of the actual wax. Once you set it down, it's going to go down because now it's checking the temperature of the wax and touching the pitcher. So it's going to go down. Like right now, it's showing 150, 149 because it's touching the pitcher. If I lift it up just a little bit, it's going to jump back up. That's the temperature of the actual wax. I'm going to pour the fragrance oil while that finishes cooling down. And we're doing 12.75 grams. All right, 12.81. That's close enough. All right, our wax has cooled down to about 150, so I'm going to add the fragrance oil. In case you're wondering why I'm using 2 Dixie cups, it's because I got the kinds that are not lined with wax, so the fragrance oil does like to seep out of it. You want to make sure that you stir in your fragrance oil for, at the very bare minimum, 2 minutes. Now, I've had some people ask how slowly I pour. I mean, I pour slow, but not like too slow. Okay. Now, once I'm done, I like to put a paper towel in here with what I was just using it to stir to get all that stuff in the pitcher. Wipe it all off. And then I'll go back in, spray it with alcohol, and do this again. Okay, so now I'm gonna go in, spray some alcohol, and wipe it down. I never clean the outside of these, obviously, because it's really gross. Okay, but now we've got our candle, and while it's cooling, I know that I'm moving it right now, but you really don't want to move it at all. And you want to make sure that it's in a room that is room temperature. It doesn't need to be too cold, otherwise the wax is going to cool too quickly, and that'll make it pull from the glass. So if you're doing it in jars that you can see through, it'll have what we call wet spots, and it'll pull from the glass, and it'll, I actually have some with wet spots, so let me just show you. So this is an example of a candle that was curing in too cold of space. This is a frosted jar, and you can still just see where it pulled away from the glass. All this right here means that it shrank too fast, and so it pulled away from the glass right there. So if you want to avoid that happening, make sure that your candles are in a room that's like, I don't know, for what works for me is like 72 degrees or higher, which I know is warm for some people. That's like really, really warm. But if you can just let them hang out in that temperature while they cure, which by the way, you should let your candles cure for 2 weeks. And I know a lot of people say that it doesn't matter. I believe what works for me is if I let them cure for 2 weeks. This is what it looks like as it's cooling. You can already see it's getting a little bit like foggy. You can kind of see it's starting to harden with the weird stuff in the middle. I've never really been able to avoid that, but that's what the heat gun's for. I think that those things, I think on the sides maybe, that's from me moving it around. So actually this may have hardened a lot better, but because I kept moving it around, it's not gonna have smooth top. I've never like actually watched a candle harden all the way through. This is kind of cool. So now the candle has hardened. It's still warm to the touch, but I'm gonna go ahead and take the Wick Centering device out. As you can see, it definitely did not cool with a hard top. So let's trim our wicks. And I do this with every candle, but just to make sure that there are no sinkholes in the candle at all. And we let it cool, and we might have to do this a couple more times with the heat gun, but you just keep doing it. Sometimes if you leave it overnight and then go in with the heat gun in the morning, that'll be like the final one and you won't have to do it again. All right, so just to show y'all what they look like whenever they're done, this is a finished candle, but rather than waiting until the morning, they still have smooth tops. You might have to go in and kind of clean up the edges a little bit, like right there. But it's very, very matte and flat. If you want it to be more shiny, a paraffin wax is going to be your friend there. I'm about to do like a beginner candle making series. This is the first video in the series. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please leave it down in the comments. That way I know if I need to add more to the series. I already know I'm going to be going over waxes and vessels and wicks and fragrance oils and stuff, but if you have any questions at all, please feel free to leave it down in the comments. That'll help me out a whole lot. And if you want to give this video a thumbs up, that would be super beneficial to me and my channel. If you would like to subscribe to the channel, that button is down below. Otherwise, I hope that y'all are having a great day and be excellent to each other, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.